Hey, what's going on? JK Leeds here. So, if you've watched any of my Dark Souls 2 challenge run videos, you'll probably notice one thing that's consistent across all of them. I don't do Darklurker. Now, why is that? Well, just to be upfront, Dark Souls 2 is a long game to challenge run, and doing Darklurker extends the run even more, plus by the time I usually want to attempt it, I've run out of human effigies. It's pretty easy to store these up on a normal run, but less so on one of these challenge runs where you end up dying more frequently, so the thought of going and farming them really puts me off. On top of that, you need to kill every enemy in one of the chasms each time you want to attempt Darklurker, and that's bad news when you're using a limited use consumable like I am. But as my throwing knife videos are quite special to me, I decided that on this one occasion, I'm going to do this special bonus video where I will finally face Darklurker on this channel. Just to say, I have beaten Darklurker before on normal runs a couple times, but I've never done it in one of these challenge runs, so this is a first. I'll be using my throwing knife character from the previous video. If you haven't seen that, go check it out, the link's in the description. So, to get started, I farmed a whole bunch of effigies using a bonfire ascetic at the Forest of Fallen Giants. You can go and grab this chest here, which contains 5 of the beauties each time. We've now got 21, and I hope to God that this is enough. I first need to speak to Dark Diver Gandalf in 3 locations. First, there's one under Drangleic Castle behind one of the doors you need to kill an enemy in front of. I kill the statue guy after a bit of knife faffing, and drop through the floor to light the bonfire. We chat with Dumbledark, who tells us to find him elsewhere. We locate him again in the Shaded Woods, and then one final time in the Black Gulch. He's behind this door which needs the Forgotten Key. At last, he'll let us join the Covenant. Or he would do if it weren't for this annoying NPC invader. After banishing Gully by going through the fog gate, we can now join the Covenant with no issues, and we can enter the first chasm. This one is probably the most annoying as it has the most enemies and you can easily get ganged up on. After the first of what will likely be several painful deaths, I sacrifice our first effigy to get me some more of this abyss crack. As they always say, the first one's free. I did a quick test here to see if save stating is possible, and thankfully it is in case I need it. Things go a lot smoother this time, and the 2 NPCs at the start are down. We can light this first fire. Luckily, all these NPCs can be poisoned, so that's the main form of attack we're going to use to take them out. The only exception will be this ghost tree thing, which we use normal knives for. The enemies are now cleared out, and our first chasm is complete. I was a bit scared, but this was smoother than I thought. Let's tackle the one under Drangleic Castle now. I warp to the wrong bonfire and run over to the hole again because I suck, and we enter a small chasm with only 4 enemies this time. One of them is of course I have a limitator because of course it is. It's pretty wild that these little throwing knives stagger someone wearing Havel's armor every time. Poison takes them out and normal knives defeat Casper. This particular chasm contains what I think is the toughest NPC, this chap with a rapier. Their fast repeating stabs can ruin our health very quickly, plus they seem to have a lot of heals to counter the poison. It took a lot of running around, but finally, this guy drops. The last target is this 2 sword wielding NPC who seems to have completely brain dead AI and just stands there while we destroy them with knives. Have a knife day. The second chasm is now finito. This has been easier than I expected so far. We trot onwards to the last chasm over by the Shaded Woods. This one is probably the easiest one, as again the NPCs seem to just stand there and take knives to the face until they die. This was a breeze to get through actually. It still takes about 4 minutes because of the poison time, but I was never in any danger of dying here. We drop down the final hole, and at last we can face off against Darklurker, who's of course lurking here in the dark. I'm going to quickly exit out to restock, but before we do, let's check out the knife damage. Okay, 97 from a normal knife. That's not bad actually. With Darklurker's 5770 HP, that means we can take him down with just normal knives as long as we hit him with at least 60 of them. Darklurker can't be poisoned or bled, but that's okay. As long as we have those normal knives, including maybe a few just in case I mess up and miss, we'll be fine. After a restock, I dive back into the Shaded Woods chasm. I think it's the easiest one to be honest. Well, most of the time. I need to just use poison and lacerating knives where possible to take down the NPCs and the tree ghost thing, so I can keep as many normal knives as possible, and this was actually pretty manageable. Now, after all this, we're finally going to take on Darklurker, and I guess the question is this actually going to be a challenge, or is this going to be kinda easy like a lot of the other bosses in this Dark Souls 2 run? Well, actually he's kinda difficult. This was probably the most challenging boss in Dark Souls 2 that I was actually capable of beating. The first phase is fine. I figure out the dodges and get the ranged punishes in, but phase 2 gets kinda wild when he splits in two. It's a constant barrage of magic, which does a ton of damage. I realised I've actually got no other armour to really swap to help with this massive magic damage, apart from Havel's armour, which I can't wield because it has a strength requirement. I even put on the Dark Quartz Ring +1, but it didn't really seem to make any difference. I had quite a few attempts at this, I'm not ashamed to say. I found it quite tough to keep an eye on both of them and find windows to attack, so this was quite a long fight. There's projectiles flying everywhere, and it's tough to avoid them and get those knife throws in. After a few pretty close attempts, and some heartbreaking deaths as always, here it is. Well, that's it. Darklurker has finally been defeated on the JK Leeds channel. You know what? This fight was great. It was really intense, more so than most of the bosses in Dark Souls 2, and I'm glad that I finally got round to doing it here. The journey to get there is still awful, but at least it's a decent and unique boss, unlike what's at the end of the Fridge's outskirts, for example. If you liked this video, make sure to hit us up with a like and subscribe for more content. More content like, I don't know, maybe Dark Souls 3 throwing knives only? Until then, have a good one. See you later.